All right, let's dive in. We're about to explore a world that's, well, it's the very foundation of the English language, but at the same time, it feels like a totally alien planet. We're going way back to a time of warriors, of monsters, and a language that, if you listen closely, has the ghosts of our own words rattling around inside it. Listen to this. What? We gardina ingirdagum. Those are the opening words of Beowulf, the single greatest epic to survive from Old English. It's got this harsh, percussive sound to it, right? You can almost feel that rhythm, like a war drum beating. And that really brings us to the big question here. Because when you hear that, you're probably thinking, there is no way that's English. But believe it or not, that strange, guttural tongue is the direct ancestor of the language I'm speaking to you in right now. So, how on earth do we get from that to this? To find out, we have to meet the people who spoke it.
So just who were these people? What kind of world created stories like this? Let's get our bearings with a quick look at their timeline.
Okay, so their era stretches for about 600 years. It all kicks off around 450 AD, when these Germanic tribes, the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes, sailed over to Britain, after the Romans had packed up and left. For a few hundred years, they build this tough warrior society. But then comes a massive shift. In 597, Christianity arrives, and it changes everything. In fact, the Beowulf manuscript we have today was probably written down much later by a Christian monk who was looking back at this older, pagan, heroic age. And the whole era comes to a sudden, dramatic end in 1066 with the Norman conquest, a moment that would change the English language forever.
And this history creates this incredible tension that you can feel in all their stories. It's like the whole culture had two minds. On one hand, you have the old Germanic warrior code. It's pagan, it believes in an unshakable, impersonal force called weird or fate, and the most important thing in life is to earn glory, lof, through your deeds. But on the other hand, you have this new Christian worldview, which preaches things like humility, salvation, and loyalty not to your warlord, but to the one true God. All their best literature lives right in the middle of that conflict.
And the physical and spiritual center of their entire world was the mead hall. You have to understand, this was way more than just a place to drink. This was the beating heart of the community. It was your court of law, your banquet hall, your safe haven. Imagine it, a tiny island of light, warmth, and laughter surrounded by an endless, dark, cold wilderness, which is where the monsters lived. The mead hall was civilization itself.
So, in this world, how did you tell a story? Well, it turns out they had this amazing poetic toolkit, almost like a secret code based on sound and cleverness. First, you have to meet the scop. In a society where most people couldn't read or write, the scop was everything. He was the entertainer, sure, but he was also the historian, the living library of the tribe's great deeds and lineages. For any warrior, your only real shot at living forever was to have a scop compose a great song about you. They were the gatekeepers of immortality. And the poetry these scops performed didn't work like a lot of ours does today. They weren't focused on end rhymes. For them, it was all about alliteration, repeating the sounds at the beginning of words. This gives the poetry this heavy, driving beat. You can just imagine it being chanted loud in a crowded hall, trying to be heard over the fire and the boasts of warriors. And this brings me to my absolute favorite piece of their code, the kinning. A kinning is basically a poetic riddle. It's a creative, compound nickname for a common thing. It was a game, really, a way for the poet to show off how clever they were, and for the audience to feel smart for getting the reference. And you can see their entire worldview just in these little word puzzles. The sea isn't just the sea, it's the Hornrade, the whale road. How amazing is that? A king isn't just a king, he's a Gifa, a ring giver, because his main job was to reward his loyal warriors with treasure. And my personal favorite, the one from our title, your body is your bonhus, your bone house. It's just such a powerful, beautiful, and kind of grim image, isn't it? So, let's see how this all comes together. That cultural tension, the safety of the mead hall, that poetic secret code, and the undisputed masterpiece of their age, Beowulf. The entire epic is structured around 3 epic boss battles. And each monster isn't just a scary creature, it represents a fundamental threat to the Anglo-Saxon way of life. First, you've got Grendel. He's an outcast who literally can't stand the sound of human joy coming from the mead hall. He represents envy, loneliness, and social chaos. Then, after he's defeated, his mother shows up, seeking vengeance. She represents the endless destructive cycle of the blood feud, an eye for an eye forever. And finally, 50 years later, an old King Beowulf has to face the dragon, a monster of pure greed, and the one enemy no one can ever truly defeat: death itself.
So why? Why would Beowulf risk his life against these things? It all comes down to one crucial concept: luff. Remember, in that original warrior culture, there was no guaranteed heaven. The only afterlife you could count on was having your name and your deeds live on in the songs of the Scop. Luff, immortal fame, was the whole point. It was everything.
But here's the twist. Here's what makes this poem so haunting. For a story about a monster-slaying hero, the ending of Beowulf isn't triumphant at all. It's profoundly sad. It's an elegy, a song of mourning.
And to understand why it ends this way, we have to go back to Wyrd, fate with a capital F. Even after the Anglo-Saxons converted, they never fully shook this older, darker idea that some things are simply doomed, that there's an unstoppable force in the universe that gets its way in the end, and that idea haunts all of their stories.
You feel this most powerfully at Beowulf's funeral. He's defeated the dragon, but he died doing it. And as his body burns on the pyre, a woman from his tribe doesn't sing about his glory. No, she sings this terrifying lament, a prophecy that now that their great protector is gone, their nation is doomed. They're going to be wiped out.
And that is the poem's final, devastating message. Beowulf was the greatest hero who ever lived. He could kill monsters, but he could not kill time. He couldn't stop death. He couldn't defeat fate. All his incredible victories did was buy his people a little more time. In the long run, Wyrd is always undefeated.
The entire poem is a look back at a world that was already vanishing when the ink was drying on the page. It's a memorial to heroes whose only real hope for immortality was a story, a song that would echo through the ages. Which kind of leaves us with a question that feels just as big today, doesn't it? If their song was their afterlife, what will be ours?